Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and today we're doing front door speakers on this 2015 Subaru Impreza WRX. In this install, we're going to show you how to remove the factory door panel, remove the speaker both from the door itself and up in the dash in the tweeter, and we're going to head back to the bench, get the new tweeter and speaker wired up, ready to go, and reinstalled here back in the car. Let's get started. Now the panel itself is actually held on just with clips up and around, except for two Phillips head screws, which are in the handle area as well as the door hold area. And they're covered with little panels, and you'll notice there's this little slit for a flathead screwdriver. And allows you to pop those little doors open, exposing those screws. Then with the Phillips, go ahead and remove those screws. Those two door screws were removed. Now, like I said, everything else is just held on with clips. You can try to get your fingers up and around the outsides here just to get a little hold. Okay, once that is off, you can disconnect the actual cables off it. However, there's two screws at the base of your handle. To remove those two screws, the handle just comes right out of the door panel. Then it just comes right on out. And then next you're going to have some harnesses here to disconnect. Okay, so once you've gotten your door and harnesses all unplugged, each one of these harnesses have little tabs. You just press in and they come out from the bottom. Once those are disconnected, we can pull the door panel away. Now if you notice any of these clips that do remain in the door, we can pop them out, put them back in the door panel before we reinstall the panel once the new speaker's in. Okay, so at this point we got our factory speaker. We can disconnect the harness there, holding it in. Okay, after we remove the three Phillips screws off the speaker comes on out since we've disconnected the harness. At this point we can head over the bench and prep our new mid-range. Alright, so for the tweeter here, really I have a panel tool. It's just held in with clips. We can just get up underneath to pop this on out here. Okay, so once that panel's out of the way, just two Phillips holding this in. Okay, once those two screws are out, you can go ahead and pull the tweeter on out and disconnect the harness. Okay, let's head over to the bench and prep our new speakers. Alright, so we're here at the bench. The parts that we're going to need to replace the speakers in our Subaru, we've chosen to go with these Alpine Type Rs. These are 6.5-inch component speakers, meaning we have a mid-range speaker as well as a separate tweeter. You can install a coaxial and leave the factory tweeter or combination of which, but we want to actually replace both the tweeter and the speaker in the Subaru, so we went with a component set. If you want to see these speakers unboxing and everything that comes with these, in case you would want them in your Subaru, go ahead and check the description. We'll have a link below. These mid-range speakers need to be accommodated with a bracket so they fit properly in the door, so we're going with these Metra 82-8901 bracket adapters. Essentially here, these are the same shape as our factory speakers over here, so they bolt up in the same location. For the tweeter here, we need brackets as well, and we can post in the description these part numbers in case you want to pick these up. Essentially here, they're ABS plastic, and when we mount our tweeter that came with our speaker, it looks like that, and it should bolt up right to the factory location. As you can see, it's the same exact shape as our factory tweeter. Now for the wiring side of it, we need these. For the doors, it's the Metra 72-8104, and for the wiring in the dash for our tweeters, we want these Red Wolf tweeters here, tweeter speaker harness adapters, and again we'll post the part number to these in the description below. So with our speakers here, our mid-range actually has a crossover built into the back of it here, so we don't have to run a crossover on our mid-range, but our tweeters do require one, which these Type Rs have, And so this will go in line. This end plugs into our tweeter. This end will plug into our harness adapter by Red Wolf. So we'll show you how we'll wire those up here. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and get our speakers mounted into our brackets here. Now these brackets accommodate both a 5 1/4 and 6 1/2. Since we're doing 6 1/2, these little insert tabs need to be broken off so our speaker can sit flush in the adapter. And then we'll get these harness adapters mounted to the back of our speakers. So let's get started. Now keep in mind when you go to wire these up and mount our speakers in the brackets here, there is a left and a right. So the best way to determine which one is which is grab your factory speaker, and this one's labeled as the left hand side. And what you can do is match up the mounting holes and find the one that has the exact same shape, which this one is. If you looked at this one, it's the opposite shape, and that's not what we need, so this must be for the other door. So we'll set this one off to the side. Now before we mount our speaker up here, so our wiring harnesses are actually on the surface of the door panel and don't come through the hole in the door skin itself. So we don't want to pinch our harness when we get this mounted. So what I'm going to do is actually go ahead and put a little hole here just so I have space to run my wiring. Alright, so we went ahead and got our speaker mounted up in the bracket here. Now, the screws generally that are included with the speaker for these brackets, the bracket holes are too big. So the screw has nothing to bite into. So that was pretty annoying. So I found these bigger screws, these panhead screws that are a little bit bigger. It allows us to get that mounted as nice and snug. They're a little bit thicker in diameter, so they actually thread up just fine. And yeah, we should be good to go there. So with that hole there, the next thing we need to do is run our wiring harnesses in there and plug it up to the terminals here on the back of the speaker. Okay, so with that hole in there, we fed our harnesses up, plugged them in to our mid-range here. So this will bolt up in the factory location and we'll just plug right into the factory harness. This speaker is all done. Now let's move on to our tweeter. Alright, so we have our tweeters here, and I mean, we've already gotten them mounted up in the brackets here, both of them, for the left and right side. These are our tweeter harness adapters, and these won't necessarily just plug in, right? We have to have our crossover that's required with these speakers. So what we're going to do, since we have so much extra length here, is we're going to shorten this up. Basically, we're going to cut these off, wire them right into here, so our harness to our input of our crossover is super short. And then we'll also shorten this one up, cut this here, and cut this here, just making sure that this is super short as well, because this will mount in the dash just underneath the tweeter. So we're going to cut out a ton of the length of wiring here and start getting things soldered up. Okay, so we went ahead and finished soldering up our connections here. We put some heat shrink tubing on just to make sure we protect those connections. So as you can see, we took out a ton of wire. We just didn't need all that extra wire since the connection was so close to the tweeter itself. So this end will plug into the tweeter harness in the car, supply the crossover, the signal. The signal is crossed over and then it goes out, the output to the tweeter. Again, cut out a ton of wiring here and goes right to our tweeter that will mount there. So a lot cleaner, a lot nicer. At this point, we'll roll our heat shrink up and over our connections here. Then what we're going to do is use a heat gun and shrink the tubes. All right, so at this point, we got our tweeter all wired up, ready to go. This will just plug right into the dash. Cool thing with this tweeter is this little door does slide on up. Allows us to set over our tweeter level if you want to tone it down a little bit, negative 3 dB, keep it the same at 0 dB, or give it a little bit more at positive 3 dB, depending on the location here. So we'll probably play with it just to determine what level we like it at. So with our mid-range done and our tweeter all wired up, we are ready to head back to the car and get everything reinstalled. Alright, so at this point we're ready to get the door panel all reassembled here by getting our speaker in. You've probably noticed we've already roadkilled or sound deadened the door here. We did that at a previous time. Yours most likely won't be, but now's a good time to go ahead and do that if you want to actually sound deaden. We're also going to put in some fast rings here as well. So as we get started here, these will bolt right on up to the factory location. Okay, so with our 3 screws in, it's nice and snug. Here is our wiring harness adapter, and it should just plug straight on in here, like so. We'll tuck that back up here. This turned out great, looks nice and clean. Before we go ahead and get the door panel reinstalled, we'll do a little test here. But okay, so at this point in time, we went ahead and got our fast rings on. I just went ahead and cut the foam just so it would make a nice seal without folding over back behind the door panel. Got our fast rings on inside the door panel as well as on this outside here to make a good seal. Everything's been sound deadened. Let's go ahead and get our door panel back on. Now when you reinstall your tweeter, if you recognize that your panel here sits too close to your tweeter and it pushes it up, you can trim a little bit on the back of the panel here just to make the space needed for the tweeter clear your panel itself. Okay, that's about it for the install today. If you have any questions on what we did here, go ahead and post a comment below. Thanks guys for watching the channel. Appreciate the support. Don't forget to subscribe. We post great content here all the time. If you want to know how we do the rear speakers, we'll have a link down in the description in case you want to check that out as well. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you in the next video.